Congressman Khanna, okay? He is in the mix. He's the deputy whip on the progressive side, that caucus within the party. Up there in Capitol Hill, very active. He's seen as a fair broker, and it's been really good to have him on the show. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us again.
Of course, Chris. Good to be on. Action-filled day.
So, does Manu have it right?
He does. He has it right. We have a progressive meeting coming up. I spoke with Senator Sanders. Here's the thing. Progress seems to have been made today. At least Senator Manchin now has offered a framework. I actually hear that Senator Sinema is engaged. But we can't approve everything at midnight. I mean, we're going to have to see what the framework is. We need to have progressive input into the framework. But if the deadline has created a forcing function to move the debate forward, that's good. I just don't expect that the bill is actually going to pass today. There's no way we can vote on something.
Okay. And look, let's be honest. The timing, the urgency, the confusion, that's catnip for the media. You know, will it happen? Won't it happen? To me, it's really like tertiary. It's not first. It's not second. It's like a third consideration. Really, what matters here is, what does framework mean? When you say, because Manchin will say, look, I told Chuck Schumer in July what my number was and what my concerns were with how you pay for this, that beyond what your tax rates are and what revenue you'll get, everything else is, to him, magic. That it doesn't really exist, dynamic scoring and the rest. So when you say you have a framework, what is that? What's the framework?
I don't think we have one. We're working towards one, but I'll tell you what Senator Manchin has done that's constructive. He said that we need to repeal a lot of the Trump tax cuts. That means he's open to raising the corporate tax rate. He's open to raising taxes on the very wealthy. He's open to raising certain capital gains taxes. You can get about $2 trillion of revenue by just doing that, and that's a solid base to start with. He's also said he's open to expanding the child tax credit. He's open to preschool. He's open to investing in our seniors. So there are areas of disagreement. I don't think we ought to be means testing some of the things. There are areas where
Let's talk about that role, because, again, a lot of people, we don't use this vocabulary all the time.
Yeah.
So Manchin says, I'm open to giving money, and they'll say, because people say to him, everybody in West Virginia wants this. First of all, they vote on culture issues down there, too, right? That's why Trump won it by 40 points. He says, not everybody in West Virginia is equal. Not everybody in this country is equal. You must means test. And that, he says, is taking a look at who needs this kind of help and who doesn't, drawing a line, and then figure out how much to spend. Why don't you like that?
For some things, I think it makes sense. If you're going to talk about the child tax credit to help working families, that makes sense, to give that to working families and middle-income families. For other things, it makes no sense. For example, we don't means test school. When I went to first grade, I had working-class kids there, and there were some rich kids there. And it would be awful for this country if everything was based on economic class distinctions. We'd be more polarized. So when it comes to universal preschool, I don't think that should be means tested. And that's why we have to look at the framework where we may agree or not agree. There may be places where Senator Manchin is right.
Why should rich people get free preschool?
Well, just like rich people can go to public school. I think public school ought to be universal. I think public college ought to be universal. What I don't want is...
Why should rich people get free college?
Well, because I want people still to go to public college. I mean, first of all, most of the rich folks go to Ivy League schools anyway, or other private schools. But if there've got to be places in this country, public schools, public colleges, where we have a mixing of economic class, where everyone can go. There've got to be some universal programs like Social Security, Medicare. I mean, we're all in this together, Chris, as Americans.
Why can't you means test Social Security? Just because you pay in, if you don't need the money, why don't you figure out a mechanism where above a certain amount you get some kind of tax deduction or something, but you don't get the money because you don't need it?
Well, you know what you could do is you can scrap the cap. So if you're paying tax over $250,000, you're going to pay in a lot more to Social Security. But I think it's important as a principle that every American participate in that program.
Me too.
Because it's a...
So why don't you raise the cap? That would get you a ton of money.
I'm for that. Obama ran on that, actually.
Back Is Manchin in favor of that?
I don't know. I mean, that would be something worth talking. You know what I don't understand, Chris? One of the things is, why can't we have these siloed conversations. It's sort of like Manchin and Sinema are talking to the White House and the Speaker. The progressives are talking to the Speaker. Why not just get everyone have Manchin, the progressives, the White House, the Speaker in the same room. They always do these in silo meetings.
I don't know.
I think, and maybe that's what happens here.
Why don't you get 50 of you guys and go to Camp David?
Well, I think what will happen here is we'll have a framework, and then the progressives should get on board. But I think we should just get the key folks in one room and say, okay, where do we agree? Where do we disagree? We get an agreement. But this tonight is going to move us forward. I mean, it's what Manchin has done is constructive in saying that even Sinema voted against the Trump tax cuts. At the very least, we can have about $2 trillion of revenue just by the repeal of the Trump tax cuts. And every Democrat is on the record opposing those tax cuts.
I got to tell you, Khanna, this is helpful because you're explaining it in a way that'll make sense to people who don't follow, parliamentary minutia of what happens with the budgeting process. But you don't believe there's going to be a vote today on the infrastructure bill. And who knows, maybe that's a good thing if it allows you to get even more done. So good luck to you going forward with doing the business of the people.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you for taking it.